The mystery. Our Lady of the Woods Academy, Laurel Ridge, Pennsylvania. That a few votive lights could cast such large, trembling shadows across the high arching vault of the hallways as she carefully made her way toward the winding stairway to creep into the darkened chapel, itself now lit only with such lights flickering wanly in the drafts, only added to what drew her here on these cold nights. She sought the mystery as though it were something she could attain and thus possess. At her young and tender age she had no name for it as yet, only the yearning that so intrigued her. She knew it was here, she felt it, unnameable, but real. The consequences if she were caught at this late hour would be expulsion, but that hadn't occurred to her. She kept far to the back of the chapel, crouched down in the pews. Kneeling on the cold marble by the aisle, she felt only the heat of the desire within. Totally alone as she prayed to the inanimate plaster saints for a sign, all the while keeping one eye slyly open. Eventually the cold rose through her young joints and the dampness, thank goodness, for her greatest fear was that she might fall to sleep and be found sprawled there when the morning mass began. Who knows what they, the nuns, would do, for she was just one of 2 non-Catholic students in residence. Often when she crept exhausted back to her bed in the dorm, she would pause by the cell of the beautiful young novitiate, Sister Benedicta, who guarded her young charges as they slept on through the night undisturbed. A soft sobbing issued from within Benedicta's cell, the sound of constant sorrow. Anna knew it well. Sisters, Anna thought, we are sisters. Sorrow binds us in secret. We will never tell. She could see it in the tall sister's eyes when she sometimes braided Anna's hair. She was the only one who patiently worked the tangles out as she sat unmoving, enjoying just to be touched with a gentle hand. When the sky began to lighten and the bell rang for the routines to begin once again, the mystery had long dispersed, and with it the longing had crept back into the darkest recess of Anna's heart. The nuns swept through the corridors, rousing the girls to quickly don their uniforms to assemble for the 6 o'clock Mass, and the rest of the undeviating routine Anna complied with from habit. Within the folds of her clothing lay a daguerreotype of her recently deceased mother. She knew not to look at it, though. Being an only child meant that loneliness had long resided in her very marrow, creating both an independent spirit and, unfortunately, a tendency to alienate those who might make a small effort to befriend her. She preferred her own company. She didn't miss her father, as she simply wasn't used to seeing much of him now that she had been sent away to board here. She missed her pets considerably, and saved scraps from her meals to try and tame some of the small birds and squirrels that roamed the grounds. The academy her father had chosen, apart from its excellent academic standing, was located close to his hunting lodge, where he was spending more and more of his time. She was an exceptionally good student. Her ability to leave depended on her achieving academic excellence as per her father's request. While she was not required to take the catechism class, she did, and found the lives of the saints fascinating. She had not found answers in any of her lessons, but she hadn't formulated a question either. Deportment, etiquette, not even tolerable. The piano lessons, which required infinite amounts of practice, excruciating. She lived for the brief hours when she could be outdoors and easily escape the scrutiny of the upperclassmen's gaze, certainly not missed while the others were playing badminton or croquet, or merely aimlessly strolling the well-manicured, ample grounds. She flew down past the garden plots to the swampy marsh, and often up to the small wrought-iron fenced graveyard on a knoll above the school, well hidden behind a scrim of pines and lilacs. A wonderful sanctuary for her, overlooking the bright, shining coin of the marsh below, where bobolinks and red-winged blackbirds hung from cattails and called out. So peaceful among the dead. Besides, her father's uncle, a favorite one, a historian by profession, Martin, had often regaled her with tales of their family history, hints of Indian blood. When she had been sent to her room for some general naughtiness, he often appeared, respectfully requesting permission to enter, and with a finger to his lips would seat himself and entertain her while she was sequestered from the rest of the family. It was Uncle Martin who told her, when she had protested, practically kicking and screaming at the very thought of being sent to this boarding school. "I'm a Protestant, you know. We protest after all." He found that quite charming. She could tell. He liked her. That this school was located right on the old warrior trail that wound through the foothills of the Alleghenies. The Iroquois traveled it during the French and Indian War. And I'll tell you a secret. Lean close. You will have to go a-roaming. There's a little graveyard behind the school. Well, there's a real Indian princess buried there. It was true. An unmarked, unkempt grave. She just knew somehow. She had found it her first week and had gotten so many demerits for being not only late for study hall, but muddy and unkempt besides, that she was unable to go home that weekend. But she did not mind. And I saw that the plot was kept groomed and brought crow and jay feathers, lucky stones, and marsh marigolds to it. Deep in the pocket of her school blazer she had secreted an ermine tail from her father's glorious treasure, the Plains Indian war shirt that was so prominently displayed above the desk in his study. The hair was beginning to shed from it, for she had been wearing it like a talisman. Now she had brought it to the princess's grave. It had helped so much, those first nights lying in that narrow iron cot on those coarse sheets in the school's dormitory, listening to the scratching of the bare branches across the tall dormer windows as the October winds began to gain in strength throughout the passing hours till dawn. Now she raised the bony remnant to her lips and began to dig it under the wet loam of the grave. Perhaps the mystery lies here, she thought.